The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Zertis or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
Trump dance.
Ping pong pong. Ping pong.
I mean,
Some say it's the best dance,
but it's not our fault. So I'm here with my friends, and let me introduce them. This is Seth from Venice Beach Dub Club. I hope you listen to his Hybrid Love video. It's pretty awesome. He's got this great track right here. Here's a little just.
She never leave me depressed.
All right, so you got audio.
Yeah, I finally figured that out. Dude. I mean, it's so good, right?
Thank you.
I'll get in trouble for playing his song, but just so you guys know,
I'm gonna sue you.
That makes some pretty great music, and like I don't know if it's just being back in California, but I've been listening to it a lot this week. To be honest.
Thank you, brother.
So I hope that you all take the time to check it out. It's really good stuff. I don't know, it's just been on my mind. Also, with my good friend Douglas from Mr. Douglas, if you guys have not made the effort, you should probably go and check out Ingo Swan, because he's got the best audio recording of it, to the point that he's actually doing the official Ingo Swan recording. Which, how far are we with that now?
It's out. If you actually, there's a tab that says
God.
Ingo Swan. If you want to click on that, it's the official Secrets of Power audiobooks. There you go. That's the one.
Boom.
Nice.
It's real. It's real.
So
Yeah.
this man manifested this, and it's really exciting. And
I'm going to download it and listen to it while I go for my evening walks.
Fantastic. Oh, I would love to hear your thoughts, because Ingo does a lot to dig into deep stuff that would, in structured kind of societal situations, we automatically pass over. He goes, nah, wait a minute. Let's talk about this for a second. Why is it that it is the way that it is? Well, maybe it's because they don't want you to empower yourself. Let's take a closer look. And in that closer look, he is able to then drop some serious sparkly gems as to how we, in fact, can then not only empower ourselves, but awaken and unfold the power that is already innate within us and the human species as a whole. I look forward to hearing your walking sessions.
There's this idea that there's like, we are kind of more interesting, more superhuman than humans are superhuman in their own ways. But also we're here, of course, swapcasting with Jeremy from Alien Scientists.
Awesome.
And there's no way not to have Jeremy here for this episode, particularly because we're talking about, I just was saying aliens and time travelers, but it goes deeper than all that. But I just wanted to also introduce, for those of you who aren't super familiar for some reason, God help you, get onto the Twitter and search for Alien Scientist work, because he's been doing the deepest dives into Bob Lazar and debunking a lot of nonsense and finding out what's really true going on. Also critically looking at everything going on with artificial gravity, I want to say, as opposed to just anti-gravity, which is kind of like anti-pasta for those. And then last but not least, check this out. We got Andy here, deep in the Andy route chair. So yes. I hope you guys are excited, because this is going to be a pretty cool episode. How you doing, Andy? Oh, I think you're muted, but that's okay. You'll figure it out in a second. I'm sure he's excited, aren't you? Yeah. Look at how
now I'm excited. Now I'm definitely excited.
That was like a run-in. All of a sudden, I seen Deep Share come up, and I'm like, he's not here. And then all of a sudden, he popped up at the bottom. It was like a run-in.
It was foreshadowing.
It was pretty cool. It was pretty exciting.
Runs in with a steel chair, attacks Mr. Douglas.
I'm so eager. It's scary. All right. What do we know about the meteor shower? First off, do you guys hear about this? There's meteors everywhere, and everyone's talking about. Jeremy, you saw this, that there's meteors all across California, Texas. Wow. There's this. There's the idea that a fragment of a 1,000-pound meteor exploded over Texas could reveal new insights into our solar system. We kind of covered how basically every day, everything you were told to believe is being debunked. So basically, stop believing it every day. But beyond that, what do you think about what's really being revealed here?
Well, if I see a meteor chunk come down, I'm going to run and touch it. I want to get superpowers.
If it's a
meteor man.
You got to think meteors go for are pretty much on the same bar with the price of cocaine, except they're like probably 10 times as dense as cocaine. So like you got to think the same size chunk is worth a fortune. I mean, 1,000 pounds of cocaine is worth a fortune. 1,000-pound meteorite is worth about the same. So,
wow. Interesting point. Yeah, the money. Follow the money with this. That's pretty important.
Yeah.
So what do they want with it? I mean, they're saying it's going to reveal secrets of the solar system.
Well, I would be careful. I had a scammer like had a piece of it looked like it ended up being a piece of slag, most likely from it was from a high industrial steel area in California, and they dug this thing out of the ground. And,
I know where I'm going with this.
But yeah, there you go.
Remember Joe Dirt, because he had the meteorite that was out of an airplane. It was like the bathroom frozen airplane.
I've actually never seen this. That looks hilarious.
So he finds a meteorite.
Funny movie.
But it turns out it's not really a meteorite. It's actually just like something didn't break apart when it came out. It's usually supposed to shatter. The blue stuff froze coming out of the toilet. And so he has this like toilet frozen material.
And he's eating a cheeseburger.
It's the waste from a flight that fell on his property.
and he thinks he's going to become rich selling the meteor, right? You know,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, like you got to think like $90,000 to $120,000 is probably what that thing would be worth.
God,
on that size.
Is there a way to verify that meteors are actually from space and not just something else?
that's a great question. Is there?
Yes, there is. There's a couple different ways. One way is to cut them in half or cut a piece off and then polish it and etch it with acid and see if it has what's called a what's the name of the meteorite pattern?
Robert Townsend pattern. Is it what? Who was the actor from Meteor Man?
No, it's called the Widman-Staten pattern.
But that looks cool.
Ooh, look at that.
Yeah, Widman-Staten.
That's a dope flyer background right there.
So actually, we had to look into a lot of this meteorite, and I learned a little bit about meteorites in the process, which is interesting. And I actually got a contact with one of the leading meteorite experts in the world, and got to talk to him for a little bit about this particular sample and how we go about testing it and stuff like that. So it was an educational experience for me. I'm happy to share that. What I remember from that with people, this is the one way that they tell if it's a meteorite is to look at that. There's also what you can do is take a you have to do mass spectroscopy to find the isotope ratios of the metal that are involved, but like you could do that and find out what the metals are. And usually these are nickel titanium or what is it? Not nickel titanium. This is modern
I
steel.
think that's right. Like iron, nickel, titanium
alloys. Yeah, they appear in different titanium and zirconium alloys.
like
These things are mostly nickel iron. Yeah, nickel iron crystals. Okay, so it's a Thomson structure of nickel iron.
Because it's really common in steel work to use the, what's it called again? The you just said the German one, the Widmanstatten pattern. It's very essential when you're working with certain kinds of chromium. If you use like 1% chromium to make like high stainless steel, royal stainless steel, whatever. Because you can use a fraction of that and use like a fraction of a percent of chromium to make stainless steel, but adding more than 1% of chromium to iron, right, we'll start to make these crystalline patterns, which will, when they group together, it holds like raindrops frozen together and makes the material so much stronger that they use it in sword work. And this is connected to Damascus steel work as well.
Well, it's interesting because you can create this in the forge and in the laboratory, but it's much stronger when it's produced when the crystallization happens in the zero gravity atmosphere of outer space. So that can also be told when they look in the SEM images on the crystal patterns themselves, because you won't get these types of geometries in the crystal formations unless it was formed in space.
Or in like some sort of a sonic chamber, right? Like some acoustic chamber that could like also produce the same effects, sonication. There's new methods that we can use to do this.
And so we're seeing these beautiful patterns fall from the sky all over the place these days. I had no idea there was a new meteor shower happening.
Yeah, I hadn't heard
Yeah,
that.
this is supposed to be happening right now all over the place. Let me go back to the articles about it. What we know about the meteor seen flying over California, February hybrid meteor shower outburst, et cetera, et cetera. So, dazzling beam of light streaked across dark Californian sky about 2:20 a.m. Thursday morning. A sudden glimpse of meteor that disappeared within seconds, leaving behind a glowing tail that was observed by people in security cameras for more than 100 miles around. Is this not what happened? Because you saw a meteor or something during the show, but that would have been in the evening, not 2 a.m. So this is a whole other event. 25 witnesses that stretch from San Francisco to Anaheim and Irvine. Videos shared on Twitter and American Meteor website show the fireball glimmering on the horizon from porches to backyards in Vallejo. Most meteors in the night sky are caused by tiny particles of dirt. I was driving my car when this phenomenon occurred. Such a weird way to put it. When this phenomenon occurred.
This phenomenon.
Yeah.
So I was quite shocked and surprised by what I saw. Who speaks that way?
Yeah.
One report
Yeah.
on the American Meteor Society website from Emily F., an observer in Modesto. Modesto as well. You know, that just seems
incredibly local, actually. A meteor shower only happening over a certain portion of California. It's very interesting.
Yeah, the sky's really big.
the coast.
Right.
You can see it from everywhere.
Right. You would think that more than just one state would capture this phenomena, whether in the car or not.
She is named Emily, and every girl named Emily is crazy, so you have to factor that in too.
Good point. That's right.
Crazy girl name.
Every Emily I know needs to disprove him, please. Maybe? No? Scientifically named.
My neighbor's growing up name was Emily. That's
I
funny.
love crazy girls though. I mean, that's my favorite kind.
She's not crazy though. She's like, I swear her mom's more crazy than her. But,
She a junior, Emily Junior,
Right.
Named
nah,
after her
she
mom.
was
Emily
just,
the
like, totally
second.
normal. She got like straight A's, and she was just like this.
Then she's
normal goody
absolutely
two-shoes, and She
crazy.
ended up marrying some like millionaire guy, and she was
Good for Emily.
just totally normal.
I wonder if there's
Nice
ever
lady.
been a female
Good
junior
for her.
before, or if that's like new territory somebody could blaze.
I can
for.
introduce you to saying, oh, we got an Emily in the crowd here that takes a
Emily in the crowd.
I knew
Just
there
Well,
was
I should also
discrimination.
say Emily's are usually very cute, crazy and
together.
cute in
I
equal
remember there
measure.
was one Emily out there. All right. but
Appreciate your
the
honesty,
SETI-
Emily. Appreciate you.
SETI
Don't have a good argument for that. Thank you.
The SETI Institute has this strange question mark S for their logo, which I haven't thought about yet. And let's recall also that SETI is their new name because they were called the Order of the Dolphin because of the whole the John C. Lilly thing. But they're posting this article, February hybrid meteor shower outburst, and February hybrids meteor shower outburst. Something about it just seems strange. It's just also after the balloon thing. Is this just higher altitude balloon warfare or something? Or what are we seeing here? Because they're saying it could be specks of dust or it could be, debris that's shattering or exploding. But are they just not telling us something that's happening localized? And they're saying, oh yeah, there's a little explosion in the sky,
It's a new meteor shower, right? Yeah, don't really think about it. Well, I mean, are there any other more well-known, historically repeating meteor showers that happen around this time?
I don't know if we could think of it like annually, but maybe 4.7
that's-
year periodically dust trapped in the 5.2 mean motion resonance with Jupiter based on the shape of the orbit. I mean, I'm sure that they've got an excuse. So wait, and that's what they're saying. Like, yeah, there's a pattern here.
Yes, they can bombard me with math and numbers and figures and multisyllabic words, sure. But when it all comes down to it, our meteor showers, we've tracked, forever. We know when the toroids are going to come around. We know when the Geminids are showing up. So this is really, as far as I'm aware, and I'm not very aware at all, it seems a little out of the norm.
Technically, I think those are fairies dancing on the firmament, if I have my information correct.
Thank you for the correction. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I mean,
I don't know. I'm so out of my league with this kind of stuff. I mean, my whole life, I've just been told what things in the sky are. And then later on, I learned to just distrust the types of people that tell me that stuff. Not Jeremy, but like government, institutional sources of telling me what's in the sky. So I'm just so confused now. I literally, if you ask me what the shape of the earth is or what the sky is or anything, I really don't know. So I'll just defer to
You
people
go
who actually
first.
study
I
it.
don't know.
No, but I was going to say I'll defer to people who do independent study of this stuff and look with their own eyes through telescopes and cameras. And
Were you
directories.
talking about Jeremy Corbell and those flying pyramids?
I swear, man.
It seems like a bad shape, a pyramid to fly in. I don't know. But I don't know what kind of technology they're using, but it doesn't seem aerodynamic.
To find a pyramid. Okay, so here's the thing,
It's
though.
so
We're talking
advanced
about
you
all
can't
these
even talk
meteors.
about it.
Well, actually, I know I could pause for a second, and maybe you want to rebuttal, Jeremy. Do you want to talk a bit about meteors and reality, science?
Yeah, please.
What about meteors? Like
Yeah,
there's green meteors. All right, you can look up green meteors. Like this is like those are famous too.
Green ears.
I think it has a lot to do with the composition. So green, I believe, is copper.
Oh man,
like-
I think you're right. Yeah.
stuff too.
Fireworks
Statue of Liberty
knowledge
turned
here.
green, and that's copper.
I think they use green because you ever throw green copper in a fire, copper dust in a fire, you can get the green color.
That's some Midnight Society stuff right there.
Are there any like internet alternate theories on what meteorites are? Does anyone even touch that? Like what do flat earthers say meteorites are?
Isn't that? I think you can still be a meteor, although it could be like it's from a volcano or something. Like it's a projectile.
Ejecta.
Yeah,
but
Yeah,
that's real science. No.
Yeah, the flat earthers I know like just say that like things can still float around our atmosphere.
Isaac
and they
Newton threw
don't
an
really
apple,
specify.
and this is that apple still going through space.
It's basically like stuff going around in space, but sometimes there's this whole theory of panspermia that if there was a big enough meteor that smashed into the dinosaurs here 60 million years ago, just imagine that it sent a bunch of algae and other things, other like goo, living biological goo like tardigrades and other things that froze and were able to travel the depths of space and maybe reach and just so happen to go and land on another Earth-like planet with liquid oceans. That there's this theory that hey, why not?
Maybe the tardigrade empire is out there shooting rocks across the galaxy with their sperm on it.
But there's just something about the symmetry of it all that makes it seem kind of confusing. And then again, this is why I was, this is the next thing, which is, are the aliens us? Space.com, CNN, Sun. I've got a couple others I was looking at, but basically astronauts think UFOs are actually time travelers from the future. This is being pushed out. I think we've talked about this idea. Like we've kind of pushed it just a couple, maybe, but now it feels like this will become the next major push to say, hey, we're really looking at the future when we look at the sky. You're looking at dead stars. This is really just the same stars now, there and then, and we're all in this long-term Xenu Scientology version of science. That's the next thing. What do you think?
I don't really understand that, Ruber. Can you explain that again? That the stars we're looking at are the same stars?
Well, we're looking if we're according to the So if everything is super distant from itself, right, and so space is super far away, and the stars are supposed to be millions of light years away, that means that there are years of the light traveling. So they're millions of years old, right? So that's really what they're saying, is that all that idea of distance is really that it's on top of itself, but we're considering the distance, the time it's taking for the light to frequency here. So we're looking at, and some people say, oh yeah, when you look at the stars, you're looking at dead planets because those would be millions of years old or something like that. So you're seeing something that's already happened. Right. That's the way, NASA would explain it to a kid. But similarly, that kind of means that you're just seeing right here in a different when light is here at a different time. So those times are just stacked. So you're able to actually interact with the past, but they're seemingly distances.
What does it mean that times are stacked?
So like holographic layers. Let's see if you can see
I follow, obviously, like light has a certain speed, and that's how you measure with the blue shift, things moving away and how distant things are. But I don't understand what you're saying about you can just go to another time because it's stacked.
So it's that these times are existing simultaneously. So it's not exactly that you can go to those other times, but that those times are all here now. Those
I agree with that.
Present places.
Oh yeah.
So the entire universe that we're
time is a coordinate. I agree with that.
But I mean, it's kind of independent of space, wouldn't you say? Like, I mean, we're talking about distance from us, so prospectively, like, it's not like, the past of Earth is here with us now at the same time in this sense, right?
I don't know.
Depends on what us are. If us is just
again with
what is means,
because as soon as you get into that, you get into the idea of interaction with demons in ancient history. But if you avoid all that till now, you can just talk about SpaceInsider.com.
Well, are you talking about like Einstein? Basically, Einstein was just into coordinates. He wasn't so much into space or time. He's like, you need to know all the coordinates to go to arrive at the right where you want to be.
A spaceship is a time traveling. A DeLorean that can move through space and time. It's a metal craft or whatever the Donnie Darko version of time travel is. But you're inside of the ability to move from this reality to another reality is not really a different reality. It's just different times, maybe. So this could be what we're experiencing as UFOs or aliens, whatever they're trying. And this is not me anymore. This is just the way it's being presented by astronauts.
Yeah, there's a number of people, like even Jack Sarfati talks about this time travel stuff. I mean, someone even mentioned him in the chat earlier about getting him on to talk about, you know, some of this stuff as well.
got
But
Gary
yeah,
Busey vibes.
he says that
Not a bad thing.
this is the guy that claims that his future self called him from, you know, on the phone from the future.
I thought it was future robots.
It might
I swear.
I interviewed Austin
he
Steinbart,
contacted
and
me,
he's got
like-
the same claim that he's in contact with himself in the year 2070, and he works for Space Force and stuff.
I think things like
well, what if it
robots
was-
and yourself and singularity becomes indistinguishable by 2070 is kind of their point.
Well,
I think
you know,
he was cranked,
the whole idea of whether
but,
they're aliens or time travelers, you would think that, you know, equivalent intelligence would remove the feeling of alien. Like if you evolved from a bird and you were like some Egyptian bird-headed person, or if you were just like an amoeba jelly, but you had a you know, in the ballpark intellect and ability to communicate as a human, it would be just as alien as a human from the future. What I'm saying is your level of development kind of is what alienates you. Not your origin, not your.
Well, I mean, they say illegal alien versus undocumented worker, right? And I think this ideology is kind of the same. When you look at Star Wars and how it used to represent the racism of Britain in colonial Europe, that it looked at other cultures as animals or as beasts or as aliens, essentially as aliens, that was what Star Wars was trying to represent for people that now were more an international audience. And today that doesn't even work, because now Star Wars is even more neutralized by being, we're part of this world. Everything is even, there isn't anything alien anymore. So the idea of alien is so confusing. What does it mean to be foreign?
That's why I find it funny that we have these quote unquote insiders, bad actors, whatever, saying to this day, they still stick with this, like, it's weirder than anyone thinks. It would break everybody's mind if it all happened at once. That's why disclosure has to be so slow. That's why it's not fucking little green men. Like, we're not talking about that.
Well,
We're
if that's
talking
true,
about
have you ever done a thought experiment to try to think what wouldn't you be able to handle? You know, like, because I've heard that. That's something you hear all,
no,
all
what
the
I'm
time
saying
from-
is, what I'm suggesting is that because nothing is alien anymore, I'm surprised that we're still stuck on little green men from other planets. And the other dimension thing, I mean, other dimensions would be non-physical. Do I have that wrong? This is the physical dimension.
Either of those two hypotheses. Think about this: is if you had time travel capability, or if you're aliens and you had distant warp drive, because you need warp drive, it's going to take you a mass the size of the sun of rocket fuel if you want to get here from the nearest star with intelligent life.
Doing math,
likely. So you need a warp drive technology, and you need or time travel technology, and those two things may or may not be, you know, equivalent. They might be the same. They might be one of the same. Maybe once we figure out, you know, this tool, the new neutron, as Eric Weinstein talks about, you know, the neutron allowed us to nuclear fission. But yeah, so this thing we have up here is a more, if you want to get technical on this, this is about in control theory. Something I have an interview actually I'm posting with a guy who was a leading expert in control theory, and this led me down a lot of interesting math, which relates to, you know, these ideas of time travel and whether you can pull off time travel, because, you know, in a lot of the math and a lot of the physics, like, you have these events where, you know, time's reversible. In every quantum event, you know, the time, you have this pilot wave theory of explanation of quantum mechanics. Is one interpretation where the wave actually has a pilot wave that's not the actual wave that travels. It goes out and tests all the possibilities, and then picks one afterwards after it's gone back in time. So it actually goes forward and back in time, and then goes and jumps back forward. Is kind of like the path that quantum mechanics take at this systems. But in reality, you have you'd have this discrete event systems where you'd have an infinite number of discrete events in your system. Normally, in control theory, you're trying to limit the number of events and controls that you have in a system, so that you can make a manageable control system to run run those actuators or levers or controls that you have over certain variables within that system. So this is used, for example, it's not really common in a lot of control systems, but it's more complex things. Like, for example, the Netherlands use this in their lock system, because they have a lot of different water levels, and they have a lot of different gates that they can close and pumps that they can run at different times in order to efficiently drain all the water out of the
canals that they use. Yes.
canals and stuff. So they have all these systems, and they're all set up with control systems. And
oh no,
You got a glitch, man.
they don't want him talking about it.
You got too close to the actual truth of
Too
time travel.
close.
That's right.
This is what
They
they
came from the future to say,
It's
hey,
funny because this is what they're saying they did with the pyramids, right? With the
you
water.
can do time travel, but you have to be able to link to all these events in the whole entire system in the future at some point in time. So it's kind of like you have to send pilot waves back and forth through the whole distance of the galaxy, essentially. And like, if you wanted to shorten the time differential, like remember I posted that video, I showed the video last night of Lewis Whitten talking at the astrophysics symposium, that where he revealed that he was hired by Glenn Martin Company during the 1950s to work on anti-gravity technology. He talks a little bit about it. And that's remarkable, because he's one of these top theoretical physicists, and you have to wonder if these guys really stumbled upon a major breakthrough and covered it up. And when you look at all these secret scientists working on it at the time, guys like John Archibald Wheeler and Dewitt, they were working on this it from bit stuff, which is this it from bit idea is that if you have enough quantum, basically they must have known that something about quantum dots, decades before they theorized this stuff, but decades before it was ever invented. And even quantum dots, are modeled by, things called Dirac holes and cones, Dirac cones, which is comes from, Dirac, Paul Adrian Maurice Dirac, and a very famous physicist. But anyways, all this physics boils down to I think they figured this stuff out
So
back in the 50s, man. It almost looks like. But the idea is that you can generate reality if you can get down to the quantum bits. You're down to the source code now. You're down to the pixels on your computer screen. So you can actually regenerate the reality and change it. So you could.
The idea of a self-excited circuit was first presented by Wheeler. As an observer views the universe, it causes reality to self-create in a certain sense. This was the crux of it from bit idea. Wow, this is out of control. This is crazy.
Well, this relates to the whole idea that they're also looking into with that ATIP studies. Those, when you look into the stuff that ATIP and these UFO programs were looking into, they were looking into using your mind to control aircraft, and they were trying to do tests on how many different drones you could control with your brain, with your mind at the same time. Like, how many different commands could you do?
Awesome.
What's is the speed of light still the universal speed limit for things that have no mass or no matter, or is it possible to communicate information faster than the speed of light? If you already have, like you said, with a pilot wave, like if it's already mapped, if there's already a connection, is it possible for information to move faster than the speed of light?
I mean, there's not.
That's I'm not sure. Well, this is the thing, right? Is you'd have to basically create entangled bits across a network.
Yeah, like with quantum entanglement, that would be a third way to travel distances, right? You could either fold space, leap, or you could have a warp drive or something that goes, near the speed of light, or you could, if you had the quantum entanglement established, you could basically like Xerox yourself, like basically like create a clone of yourself at the destination just by like through like a fax, just sending the information, then it's produced at the destination instead of the matter actually making the journey.
Adam was talking about there was some problem he thought with quantum entanglement, which is
Does that make any sense, or is that just total nonsense?
Yeah. The idea is with the bits is that once you've created entangled bits,
could you fax yourself somewhere?
They
like
go
a copy of
forward
yourself
in time, so that, as they travel forward in time, they hold a pyramid on the time event timeline scale where they can actually jump back and forth in time through that pyramid.
I mean, basically, there's a cat that has to exist in the box. There's a cat that has to exist outside the box, and then there's parts of the box and then parts of outside the box where the cat's not allowed to exist, and it has to be enforced. That's how you have parallel moments, right?
Do you guys ever watch the show The Peripheral? Amazon Prime show. I can't remember who the author is, but a prolific sci-fi writer. The Peripheral deals with a kind of quantum time travel where what they've done is they will copy and then send your consciousness in real time to the future. And there is a data transfer. It's simply what they say, a data transfer, communication between your...
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. And the copy is the important part of it. Because I was thinking about like Star Trek teleporters and the whole teleporter experiment of would you still be you when you arrived, or would your living experience end?
Prestige,
and then So, but it seems like a teleporter has to scan you before it moves you. So what would be the point of even teleporting yourself? Why wouldn't you just scan yourself, then have it yourself 3D printed at the destination?
It's a population control thing that isn't really talked about in Star Trek,
because it seems like a teleporter is basically it could just clone you if it's scanning you before it teleports.
Right, absolutely, and it happens.
Turning your ship into light, turning your information into light of your entire ship through entanglement.
If you really watch Star Trek, they do duplicate themselves, and sometimes they get copies of them, or they have somebody who's frozen in the machine, and then sometimes they've messed something up and they have the original data transfer and they re-release it. So under certain protocols they can do it, but they really shy away from the ramifications of killing people, that you could produce an army instantly of yourself. And also that a lot of people don't seem to have many children. There seems to be a population control on certain people that are designated because they're part of the state. Right, the state is reproducing as much as possible, but then there's clearly a sexually free, aka a celibate, or these are Navy officers, sailboat officers, essentially. So they're swinging around and having sex all the time, but they're not reproducing that much, right? They have like one kid or less. It's like it's like 0.8 population per growth. So
replacement rate,
right. So, and then they're bringing in new people from new civilizations in their colonial pursuits. So there's definitely a population crisis, but it's the other way around.
So what's the takeaway, or what are the UFOs? Do people tend to believe that it is human time travelers, or is it kind of...
This is the thing that they're pushing right now. And Jeremy,
I don't believe it is, man. I don't think that it's time travelers. I really don't. I don't think it's aliens either, because again, if you have the warp drive technology, then you got invisibility cloaking. So it's like if they were time travelers,
go into like the people who say it is, though. Explain like the argument, because there's so many people. It's not just a crazy thought. It is a crazy thought.
I mean, what are time travelers doing? Coming back and writing, hieroglyphics, and putting crop circles in our land, and abducting and probing people, and mutilating our cattle. That's
it's on that level, yeah. But the Project Montauk stuff, the idea that we're interacting with some sort of like ghosts on Mars, those sort of stories. The CIA has been pushing that there are some sort of futuristic civilization or ancient civilization that's become ghosts that we're interacting with. So this is basically right in line with old psyops, if it's a psyop.
And I was looking about that, like the idea of these poltergeists, or the ideas of leftover energies that come back. Well, how do we produce that with physics in a laboratory? That's like my question. If you could show that or prove that somehow to scientists that would just break all this stuff, because there's a lot of this paranormal stuff which exists. It seems to be more related to what's inside of the human psyche and inside people's minds. Like you tell these people that this place is haunted, and then you make them spend the night there, and stuff, and the weird things happen. But I don't know. So there's like the skeptics on the side of this, and I'm definitely.
What do you think about the ocean hypothesis that they don't have to travel millions of light years away because they're just coming from the unexplored ocean and they have a separate civilization with different technology?
I'm down with that. Breakaway.
Yeah, I say that's more plausible, and even then, it's like they got to have invisibility cloaks and stealth technology. So if they're coming up here to study us and really keep an eye on us, it would be like the way that we study, organisms in the wild.
Sure.
Use a blind and stay upwind from them.
Right. Yeah, sure.
Sorry.
I think the breakaway civilization idea is kind of the most believable, in my opinion.
Oh, this is the parasite that looks like the alien that the alien was based on.
That looks like a baby stingray or something.
I think that's still the abyss, isn't it?
That's definitely a computer generated image. That's not a.
Oh no! Look at that.
Really?
Never before seen footage.
What?
Of alien puppets from the abyss.
I was like, what the hell? I was like, there's no way that's it.
But Andy, you were talking about breakaway civilization. So breakaway civilization, how would a breakaway civilization throw themselves deep underwater? I'm very curious.
That I don't have an answer for, but perhaps, we always in this community end up talking about, purposeful societal collapses and things like that. Perhaps an escape was made or something,
Well, why a breakaway? And in any case, it could just be a totally separate origin. I mean,
it could. Perhaps. Well, I'd rather start from the ground up.
Do you guys believe that any
humans have
what?
The water ape theory? Like our skin, the hair runs against it, the direction, so we can swim. We have more body fat than most other mammals, except for the sea mammals. We're kind of similar to sea mammals in a lot of ways. There's an idea that we spent a lot of time in water, and that perhaps. Maybe there is something to be said about that. Also the idea that whales probably were more land creatures at some point that lost the need for their fingers because they have finger bones and toe bones. So the fact that they're just like this, something went on. I don't know.
Seals.
Well, that's one theory. I mean, another great theory is that as things develop, they become more similar as opposed to more disparate. So if you have
God zapped the whales for whacking off too much. That's what it was.
Well, I'm saying, like, if things adapt. I mean, I believe in adaptation more than Darwinian evolution, but I totally believe in adaptation. So, the having finger bones is it's like a blueprint thing, basically. Anything, like just like the Star Trek cosmology or the Egyptian god cosmology, anything that develops significantly becomes a bipedal humanoid. Whether it's like a bird or a fish, you wind up with something that's like a walking fish that has like the same kind of basic bone structure, but just adapted to the environment. So you would have the same structure of a hand no matter what you are, if you're significantly developed or not, but it would be a fin if you're living in a water environment.
This is the thing, the Phronema. This is the real parasite that inspired the alien movie.
Much less impressive. Have you seen baby stingrays though? Baby stingrays look unbelievable, bro. They look like total aliens.
You can't trust them. Dude, they killed.
Yeah, so
how cool is that?
So cute. Look at them.
But okay.
Why'd you zoom in on his junk?
Scientists
get flagged for that.
Back at time. I know my life is hard. The past, has been said, is a foreign country, and sometimes it's another country.
Yeah. So this guy, his dad died when he was young, and he's a physicist now trying to travel back in time.
Yeah, he's
actually a Tufts University up here.
Do you guys believe that matter can move backwards through time, or do you think that reality is a system and systems have rules and there's different rules?
Yeah, well, I think that the system
might be
is
an
a discrete
arrangement of
event
matter.
system, and each piece of matter is a discrete event, and you can do time travel on a single event basis, but not on a network event basis. Like you can't do it globally. You could do it locally, but not globally.
I think arrangements of matter might represent moments, and you could call time maybe the degradation or the change between a moment to another moment, which are rearrangements of the same matter in a lot of
So
ways.
if I have my quantum computer and I start entangling all my qubits inside of my quantum computer, what I've done is I've created a local time reversal case where it can go back in time now and reverse itself up until the symmetry or the entanglement is broken. So it's you can never have that break. I don't know, maybe if you wrapped it around yourself, you could,
Right.
freeze yourself in time
Maybe
or
see this
something.
giant like ring, like underground, like this linear, like accelerating. I don't know what you call it, and then it would just be all underneath this area, and you just leave it running as long as possible, so that you have a reset for a few years, and then turn it back on and off.
Imagine that you put you do the twin hypothesis and put one inside.
Right, or put another one someplace else, like in Colorado in the 70s, perhaps one in China.
Well, now could a breakaway civilization have captured some pseudo kind of time manipulation, if it's not complete time travel, in which they are coming back and attempting to influence each attempt at somebody else pick it up here. That's where I drop off.
I think that makes sense, though. That's kind of the point. If you could go back to a reset point, maybe that would be a way to do this, that you've got something running for the entire history of a civilization. You've got some way to transcend to that moment. The other thought is that you've got some civilization that is able to create new moments that are based on old moments. So they're 3D printing moments based on the past, and we might be a print of a former moment that's basically femto printed beyond nanotechnology's femto technology. And so we could be experiencing this reality as if it were this moment, because it's virtually identical in symmetry.
What if it's not actually possible to do it in the real world, but it is possible to do it in the virtual world with AI inside?
That's the thing. Right now, it's definitely possible to do all this in virtual reality.
That's right, it is.
And if you believe at all in magic, then the idea that humans can manifest with their psyche realities, at least you can dream up ways of doing it once you've experienced it. I mean, this is making it possible to experience things that your body wasn't meant to experience before. Won't that make it possible for your body to experience them later?
Can you read Kent Wood's comment from the chat? He's got a good comment that kind of moves the
read it, Seth.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can. Well, I'm not the host. All right, I'll do it.
You're a host.
Ken Wood says, "What if time travel is just a process of moving your consciousness like a hermit crab from one version of yourself to a previous version, like through deep meditation?" So he's basically, the implication of that is that you have one consciousness that could inhabit any of the instances or events, as Jeremy's calling it. I call it instances, time and space points. So like, I believe that there are infinite other versions of myself at different points in space and time, and also a version of me with brown eyes, a version of me with red hair, whatever, but all of them are empty. The consciousness is here right now in this instance. I don't think that there's—
Are they empty, or is there a different consciousness?
I don't think they exist. I think they're just like, if you go to a video game and there's like a video game trope where you'll go to a city and no one's there and everything's like black and white. It's like frozen in time because there's no consciousness to inhabit it at all. So I think where consciousness is the entire sauce, and everything else is just like a waiting point, like an empty video game.
Really interesting.
What about? Well, the thing is like, I don't know. It reminds me of like superposition, where until the waveform is collapsed on, it's not going to exist in this linear fashion where we can reflect on it and experience it. Right? I mean, and if it's all just one moment and time isn't real, then this is the one we chose because it's our favorite.
If we're all frozen moments of dirt that's arranged matter until breath is breathed into it, at the very least that syncs with religion. That is like the Zohar, Kabbalah, that is the ancient belief that those are just arranged in symmetry, that the Geist isn't there yet unless it's breathed into it, which, since you have it in you, you can move it from here to there.
Right. And what's really trippy is where you are is not a limitation of where you are, because in your imagination, you can be— people say live in the present. So your consciousness can be here choosing this moment, but also simultaneously you're imagining other moments in the past or the future. So it's really layered.
I would
But
argue
what do you
how
guys
much.
think? Like, do you guys believe that so let's say that you could time travel back to the past and the Back to the Future paradox. If you meet yourself in the past, are there two of your consciousnesses existing, the future one and the past one?
So
Can they coexist?
here's
What
the
about that
idea
20
is
minute
that
program, right?
if we have these ideas of a system where all these events are happening independently, but they all influence each other and have this time evolution scale that produces reality. So this is reality as we know it, is based on every event that happened before that led up to this point, you know? So if you're able to go back and change and cut out those events, then you're able to edit reality itself. So what's reality at that point?
Right.
There's also no guarantee you can walk backward on the same path that got you to where you are now. If time is linear like that, you could start moving backwards in time, instance by instance, and move to a totally different path.
I mean, it's cool. Like people have to understand the difference in computers is that in reality, we can only, there's only so many manipulations you can have to the matrix, like the allowable transformations, right? So I can take, for example, I could take this lighter and I can rotate it this way and I can rotate it this way and I can rotate it that way and I can do all these rotations with it, and those are allowable transformations, and this is an allowable transformation. But if I want to teleport this lighter from here to there, it's not so easy to do. And if I want to flip this mirror, if it was in my computer, I could easily just teleport it across the screen. And if it was in my computer, I could also do unallowable transformations. Like I could switch it, I could flip it mirror image so that the BIC is now on the opposite side, But I can't. There's nothing I can do to this lighter physically to allow that transformation to actually happen in reality. But in my computer, that would be easy. I could just be like, all right, well, just mirror image.
So that reminds me of like how like we were saying that you can imagine you're in a million places, but there's a big difference between that and the reality that we collapse on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Attention is the collapsing of reality. It's infinite,
right.
It's infinite possible instances, coordinates of space, time, and also what I think is depth, which is variance. You with blonde hair, you whatever, you're a midget, you're tall, whatever. And so those are coordinates too. You know what I mean? So we're at where we are now, but I don't think the future exists, and I don't think the past exists. And a constraint for matter, it seems to me, maybe it's a breakable rule, but it seems like a constraint for matter is that it can only move to adjacent points and only in certain directions. You can't move backwards into the past step by step. And as you move forward into the present, you'll never move into the depth option. So you can't change your eye color. You can't become a black version of Seth or whatever. I don't know. I can think of his colors, but so a constraint to matter is it can only move to adjacent. It's like a chessboard. Certain pieces can only move to certain can only go diagonal or can only go in L shape. And like matter can only go forward in time and can only go to adjacent points in space. Those are the rules that we're dealing with now and trying to break. But consciousness is not like that. In my consciousness, I can imagine a black version of me living in medieval Mars, anything, you know what I mean? So it's like we see that it is possible to move to other places in your mind, and we're trying to figure out how to extrapolate that to matter.
Well, I mean, if you want to go to Mars, it's harder. But the melanin injections, like we could do that. Like
that's not a good look.
Here's my other issue. My other question that always pops up, and tell me if I'm going too out in the weeds. But like I've always been into like a lot of Buddhism and things like that, and this idea of my consciousness versus your consciousness, this whole my thing, this possessive idea is troublesome. And I've done a lot of psychedelics, and man, I don't know about this whole personal existence kind of thing.
I think you're right.
There's a lot to that, and I don't know. That's opening a completely different can of worms. But
well, there's definitely purpose to everything because the entire system of reality functions perfectly. We might be dissatisfied with the events of our life or our circumstances, but the entire machine is functioning perfectly. So like, you could be a spark plug in a car and be like, everything's exploding. I keep banging my head. This sucks, but you don't realize that you're in this engine. There's wheels and a body, and the car's moving down the road fine.
Absolutely.
I think that people create reality, though, not in the sense that they just make it up, but that if someone believes in something enough, they want to have it enough, they'll make it in real life, like the iPod or the iPhone or the cassette.
Manifest destiny. Yeah,
there's a
that's
certain amount of that. And so if you put symbolism in front of people with product placement, not just for them to go buy something, but for them to go become in love with the idea of something to make. That's what they did with a lot of American Hollywood, right? And a lot of British propaganda in the early 20th century is to get you to want to build Star Trek and make it happen. So that's kind of a magic sigil in and of itself. And video games are the next level because you're not just training the mind to create the thing. You're showing the mind what it's like to live in that world. So it's becoming acquainted and adjusted to it. So that's so much more than just what it would be like to see someone in Star Trek. No, now you're like in that new physics, and it's non-Newtonian physics. You could be walking down and coming up. I mean, I was doing like the PSVR 2, and you get motion sickness because if it's not that you're walking around and it's tracking to you, if you sit down and you're moving around like on the Segway in your mind, your gut starts to feel like you should be not. You're like driving.
There's way simpler examples of that, like an MC Escher painting. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, but you could be in an MC Escher painting, and you could learn to understand those physics and depths, and your hippocampus could adjust.
Yeah. David Bowie did it.
He lived in Bermuda. He gets a lot more credit than he deserves.
And the Labyrinth. That's right. Yes.
Yeah. He's cool though. But he seems more into jazz than I think people give him credit for. They think he was like way more into drugs. And I think at a certain point after Iggy Pop left his apartment in Berlin, like there was like this 6-week period, they stopped eating and they looked in the mirror and then he's like, I gotta go. And I think that was kind of the end of the old
Aha do it too. In the end of the Aha video, I think he was running through the whole
right.
Oh yeah.
Good job, Aha.
Good stuff.
But okay, 12 Monkeys was the thought. Well, you keep going.
By the way, what just came up before, basically, I think that our consciousness and this entire experience, I think it's functionary. We're driving this machine, whatever it is, like all of our experiences and our emotions and our ability to transmit information and be creative and make discoveries and advancements and stuff like that. I absolutely believe that we're serving a function in whatever the machine of reality is. We're not just having the purpose of our experiences is like we're doing something, just like we view plants as like plants don't have consciousness that we know of, but we see that plants are doing things. They're providing oxygen, they're rooting the soil, XYZ. I think that humans and consciousness itself is doing something very much like, a node of information in a computer. I'm not a computer guy, but I mean the comparison.
Yeah, it makes me wonder though also because of that. So the way
usually not for everyone though.
Yeah. The way computers say that. Go ahead, Jeremy. What do you mean?
No, sorry. I'm just saying he's like consciousness. Hopefully it works for everyone. I'm like,
yeah.
Well, I think even negative emotions and negative experiences, just like I gave the example of the spark plug constantly banging its head and exploding, it doesn't realize it's working perfectly.
Do you think there are NPCs out there that don't have consciousness? They're just like operating without.
It's a great metaphor, but I think that's as far as it goes, to be honest. But
there could be. I mean,
I think.
But that's the thing. Do we believe
that's optimism? That's my optimism and my generosity.
Sometimes seems like we're living in this Truman Show simulation.
Until you have any evidence that some people don't have consciousness, it's a very dangerous road to go down to even open yourself up to the idea of who has a soul and who is an AI. And you don't want to end up on the end of that Blade Runner test and people don't believe you're conscious and stuff.
Yeah, you just hit it, man. Blade Runner, man. We've been fed this idea for 100 years probably. And the thing is, all it is just a modern version of, again, what Buddhism suggests about consciousness already.
Yeah.
It's this, simulation, that reality, physical reality is the appearance of reality, but it is not reality. It is Maya. It's just an updated version, just like aliens. The religious thing isn't working anymore. The alien is the updated version, in my opinion. Maybe that's too much. I don't know.
Well, has there any cults like propping up about this? I really think like UFO Twitter is turning on.
Yeah,
you and me both like to observe that.
That article, or you guys keep talking about it, but I'll find it too, because astronauts speculate UFOs are time travelers in the future. And now there's a bunch of time traveler claims giant 7-foot aliens will land on Earth May 2022, leading to interdimensional war. So the 7-foot giants, and this is being, of course, delivered to the world's most watched news network, TikTok. That's the way that people are telling that, the
I
time
don't know. When people come forward with really specific information, like the name of God is, and this alien is called, I'm just like, I don't know.
Well,
I doubt it.
7-foot giant aliens, interdimensional war starts in May. I mean, like,
But it's got to be an alien. It's got apostrophes where they don't usually go.
Well, I mean,
That's an alien.
Not about it, but like, come what may, it's the kind of thought here. I'm a time traveler, and I know the exact date World War III will start, but not before.
I still think there's no utility in sending your body through time. If you have that level of technology, you'd send your consciousness, or you'd make a copy or something. So it is possible that it's people in the future sending something here, but I mean, the idea of moving I don't know. It's just, I feel like it's against the rules.
The AIs, after the AIs have taken over, they're trying to.
That's good. That's kind of who's the guy you brought up earlier, Spark Nick or whatever, because Project Camelot people, a lot of the time they're like, okay, I was in the past and I'm in the future, and then I had to do the 20 Project program. Yeah, but you get the idea. Like, that's also how you have to have a bunch of people that make it look insane to talk about the military working with, higher consciousness or higher civilizations, right? Wouldn't you? There would have to be a bunch of nonsense. This is so much of it.
Well, you have to wonder, like, how many people go through crazy black programs and end up being just alcoholics or just smoking a bunch of meth.
Yep.
And then, you go to interview them, and how do you tell the difference between those guys and the guys that just smoked a bunch of meth and think that they worked on, Mars? And
I mean, I think it tends to be that the ones who are telling some truth at all, who don't get killed, are the ones they probably smoked crack anyway because they had to work in DC and they did PCP. But it doesn't matter. The main thing is they tell you a third thing that's a lie, a third thing that's the truth, and a third thing that sounds crazy but could be a lie or could be the truth. And so the lie is you have to have a third of it that's completely made up so that they don't get killed, right? That's kind of why they're all right to be out there in the public talking about things. And so I think that is a thing that people misunderstand about some of the people. It's more obvious when someone is legitimate because they don't really want to be out there saying these things necessarily. And it's more like a due process to keep themselves from getting killed.
A lot of the times, like what I go with is like if you pull that page back up, like I see just the language and the terminology being employed indicates to me like a lack of depth of understanding. To call someone a former military white hat, you know what I mean? That that indicates a lack of understanding of how human beings operate.
Yeah,
like he's a white hat today, a black hat. You know what I mean? Like people
Master
that think
Sergeant,
that way, like
first class. Was he?
These are the good guys. These are the bad guys. You know what I mean? Like if you have any perspective, if you have any, if you can move your perspective to someone else's, obviously everyone's white hat is someone else's black hat. And so just the way this is written, just looking at the page, it seems, it doesn't seem good to me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of problems with, I think you said Project Spam a lot, but there's some interesting.
Terrorist is another man's freedom fighter.
Yeah, exactly.
But some of the stuff was based on people that, I remember these old videotapes of people that were, in Project Montauk or in the Philadelphia experiment testimonies. You maybe have seen some of the Philadelphia experiment testimonies from the 70s, people that were this guy, right? What was his name? Forget, USS Aldridge guy. There's a bunch of people that say that or several people at least, that were involved or lived through the Philadelphia experiment. And then there's some guys that say, hey, their lives were erased essentially. And then they saw stories about the Philadelphia experiment on TV, and there was someone playing them, and there's a made-for-TV movie about it. And so on one hand, you're like, okay, that's obviously insane because they were probably on crack. But on the other hand, I wouldn't put it past the CIA to make a made-for-TV movie, real-life story about someone they erased the identity of to hide it.
Right.
I mean, that's actually not as crazy as anything I've heard of the CIA doing before, like turning cats into microchipped spies with removing part of their brain and one of their eyes and putting with a microphone and a speaker, or the vampire thing in the Philippines. A lot of things the CIA do is pretty crazy or pretty dramatic. Let's say.
Or that whole company that John Nash worked at in Beautiful Mind that they just disappeared overnight.
That's my favorite, actually. The idea that John Nash, what's that movie called? Beautiful Mind? Yeah.
Beautiful Mind.
that movie is out of control because not only did he literally get in trouble for finding out that the United States was funneling money into Israel, and so he was labeled an anti-Semite because he came out about Israel, but afterwards they made it look like he'd never worked with the CIA, which Freedom of Information from that paperwork and reality checks will just clearly demonstrate. Of course, the CIA used his war game theory, so then made this movie where they make it look like he was literally insane. I mean, and how does it end? They drug the man, and he had to pretend not to take his medication for the last few years and just shut up and just not say anything. And then the world's supposed to just think he's crazy, and he has to go along with it. And that's the way his family's protected. How crazy is this world? It's like, what is that?
I think I have to watch that movie again.
Yeah, it's so out of control.
It's been a long time.
We glazed over something really cool earlier. There might just be, and maybe it's not necessary, but the idea that if we are told the truth about what's really going on, we wouldn't be able to handle it. I would like to hear some proposed ideas for things that we wouldn't be able to handle. Because we've been warmed up to so much. We've been warmed up to clones. We could be AI. This could be a simulation. Everyone can handle all of that. So what's something that people couldn't handle?
We're food.
We could handle that. I mean, that's already Soylent Green.
Yeah, like if we kept going towards the sci-fi narratives, we're all used to.
The Matrix thing, though, is kind of on that level where we've agreed to live. This is the most bearable way to live in the most horrible conditions. Something like that. This is some illusion that you're allowing, so that you can be comfortable with something that's far worse, I guess.
I've brainstormed this a lot, and I'll give a couple potential and give you guys time to think of one. Everyone think of one thing that's so bad that no one, including us, would be able to handle it. What I could come up with is basically there is a such thing as a soul, and creation's a god, and we're not it. We don't have it. We're like an AI, and we'll never have a soul. And so there is an afterlife, but it's not. We don't have the potential for it. That might be something that's hard to handle. Another thing might be that the organism we associate as good, the human being, is not what we actually are. We're actually like a virus, or like the consciousness is actually coming from a virus, or like a gut worm, or some kind of parasite in the brain, or something like that. We're like some disgusting little, water bear. We're like a water bear just inhabiting this monkey body, and that's what the consciousness is. We're just like a parasite experience. I couldn't really think of anything besides that. But can you guys think of anything that would be so bad that people couldn't handle it?
Yeah,
we're all one, so we're all alone. So we come here to pretend we're not.
That's a good one.
No!
I like that one. Yeah, I like that one.
What if DARPA and a bunch of really smart scientists figured out a way to use messenger RNA to create super viruses, and then a bunch of billionaires went and invested in this technology and then used it to sell a whole bunch of drugs and pharmaceuticals, right? And then they went and took over this whole world, and then they took everyone and threatened them, and they say, well, if you try to send us to jail and get us in trouble for it, we'll just release another virus that will kill everybody. And that would, I think, would be too much for people.
I think we would love that, us in this room, but yeah, for the average person, that'd be too much. Andreas, what's a reality that you couldn't handle? If somebody told you the reality of what you really are, or where this really is, what's something that you couldn't handle?
I was trying to get AI to come up with a horrible thing. Give it a second. So,
that's a good idea.
GPT, help me out here, bro.
Here's a list of 300.
Well, I like your idea, Andy, that it's uncurable loneliness. I mean, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around that right now. And I've kind of thought about that before, like we're all one. And then, basically God is just lonely and crazy, and the only thing there is. That would be a bad
It's a
one.
terrifying idea. It's kind of nihilistic, unfortunately.
Oh my God, it's going there right now.
Oh, let's see what AI says.
Imagine,
Read it.
if you will, that life as we know it is not what it seems. We are but mere simulations in a grand experiment created by a highly advanced malevolent race of beings. They watch and manipulate us for their own twisted purposes while we remain oblivious to their presence. These beings possess a technology so advanced it is akin to magic. They have the power to alter our perceptions to make us believe that we are living in a real world when in fact we are trapped in a virtual one. And what is the horrible thing that they're doing to us? It is a sinister plot, one that would make even the most hardened horror fan shudder in terror. They're using our collective consciousness as a new power source, harvesting our thoughts and emotions to fuel their own machines. So basically,
he's just reading our.
It's Rick and Morty. It's a Rick and Morty episode.
So, but my answer was going to be, so if you think about it, what's cool about being alive? aside from it's sometimes fun, which isn't always the case, is the idea that it's the illusion, if not the real feeling, that you're able to have a like voluntary capacity, like you've choice is a hard one to say, but kind of that you're driving somewhat, like what's the word for that? You have some amount of
agency. Yeah, you have
agency. You have some free agency, and to have that agency is really an exciting idea. So if everything turns out to be just expansive explosion of stardust, and that atoms symmetry were just naturally making the most logical symmetry, and that things were just the Big Bang was happening, right? If that were true, and if we were just the cuckolded illusion of choice happening to reality being brought forth, so it's like as nature naturally must use physics to progress, we feel like we're making choices, but that's just mass being pushed outwards. If that were all true, if physics were the way we were explaining it, and schools were true,
and that would include our emotions and our responses and stuff and our internal dialogue.
If that were just some sort of, you thought it was happening, but that was just that was the chemical response of stardust being pushed, the most natural symmetry of entropy.
That's scary.
If that were
you
true,
just described my worst trip.
That's absolutely absolutely the worst possible thing. If science were true, that would be the worst possible unfathomable thing.
Well, it depends what happens after when you die. Also,
right?
I mean everything hinges
time
on
travel or reality. Like if it came out that time travel was real, that's the one thing I really couldn't handle.
Really?
Yeah, I'd be like, no, just like reality is not real anymore, and like you could just go back and edit it, and like. No, it's just like
it's like when you get the admin codes to a video game, you don't really want to do much more.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's probably the whole point. It's like the end of Dogma where she's like, "Why are we here?" And Alanis Morissette's just like, "Whap," and walks away. She won't tell. The God will not reveal it, because it's like if you're meant to know, it kind of takes the guts out.
Game
of it.
over already. Yeah.
Like I literally had a trip like that. Like I was on 8 grams of mushrooms like 15 years ago. And eventually I got to this point where like, it's like everything had played out. It was just done. And like, it's like spirits were like mopping the floors. And it was like, you're not supposed to be here. It was very weird, but it felt like that. Like we're not supposed to kind of like be able to name it. We can describe it forever, but we can never name it.
There was a good one in the chat, by the way. I think this is the winner of this game. Oh, those are all really good, but here's a funny one. Travis McClung says, "I can't believe it's not butter, is actually butter." That's the thing that no one could deal with. That's what butter
I'll implode everything.
Fabio lied.
Honey's now.
But akin to what Jeremy said real quick about like, just doing the mRNA thing, I did have kind of a creepy thought. And I don't know if I'm probably not the only one that like, problem, reaction, solution. A lot of us have kind of over the years framed that like COVID is this created problem. The NWO, WEF, whatever technocrat thing is the sold solution that's going to come. But what if even all of that is actually just the created problem, and all of us are fighting, are slowly waking everybody up to fight against this thing, and we succeed because some hero comes through to fight the WEF. And I think that's actually in recent news, isn't it? We got Mr. Peterson creating a consortium of geniuses. With Rogan,
I mean, it's an archetype now.
With Rogan, who has talked about, has kind of baited his audience with, we should be like run by like a group of elders, man. Like he's been talking about it, baiting us for years with that idea, and now this is coming into play. So that's my paranoid thought of the week.
Don't forget that he was a globalist, at least ideologically, and a social democrat in Canada, which I guess is natural.
I'm down to be ruled by anyone who's honest about the fact they're ruling me. Anyone who's trying to pretend it's not them and it's somewhere else is a problem. It could be a council of elders. It could be one alien Xenu. As long as it's not like this like weak deception forever that's just so annoying, He
should at least say this is Agenda 21.0 or something like, there should be a 2.0. There should be a kind of something about the fact that he worked on Agenda 21 so that people know, because I don't hear him address that enough.
Consortium
ever.
Right.
Can't tell you the name yet, Joe.
I was young and I needed the money. That would be
Like the
fine.
name better be really good. Here he couldn't tell Joe Rogan what it was called. He's like, I
The
couldn't tell you
League
that
of
yet. It's like, it better be
Extraordinary
good.
Gentlemen.
If it's got a lame name, people aren't going to be into
I
it.
mentioned that it came out that DARPA did actually invent some of this stuff, or there's a video about DARPA doing this like a couple of years ago that came out on Twitter today. We should
Find me that
earlier. I shared it earlier. I don't know if you could find.
We're about to get super heavy with Maimonides and Men in Black, so if you can find that, let me know. Otherwise, I'll go for a second. You know where it is?
I don't remember the plot of Men in Black 3.
You don't remember Men in Black 3, the best Men in Black? The best Men in Black?
I might have skipped it. Is that the one with Josh Brolin?
It's Ethan Cohen made this, right? And they made A Serious Man. So if you've ever seen A Serious Man, the movie that's about chaos math and Job. So instead of God betraying Job, it's chaos math betraying Job, but it's brilliant. I think this is one of the best movies I've seen. Serious Man. But so then he's also in Men in Black, and the Cohen, where did I put that over there? Men in Black 3 is about time travel, and they go back to like the olden days. It's like the 60s, and they have to put a satellite on a rocket to stop the New Zealand actor, I forget his name, who's
Jermaine Clement.
He's the
Flight of the
greatest
Conchords.
human on Earth.
Hilarious.
I have
Yeah.
seen this.
This is amazing.
But this is a very meta Kabbalah commentary film, right? The whole film is about and it's got that same sort of 12th monkey theme of you're seeing the past, your past is always affecting you, but then you live through creating the past because you needed that to be who you are. And this is also creating kind of a tulpa that is yourself, that isn't who you were, it's who you've become. He's Jay now, right? And all this, and why is he Jay, and what was it James, and the whole everything. It's all this recursive. What was the thing we looked at the beginning there? That was the it of bit. It from bit. It's it from bit, right? So like you create the seed, and then it starts to see itself, and it produces itself. And it's meta recursory. Anyway, the movie. How far back do I have to go to find it? Jewish scholar from the Middle Ages inspired Men in Black 3's poignant time travel story. There isn't much to do on Yom Kippur besides prayer, reflection, learning, etc. Many individuals like Filmer Ethan Cohen, for instance, prepare themselves for contemplating holiday, 12th century Torah, etc. 2009, Cohen found themselves tasked with penning the Men in Black third film. Where was the Maimonides part? Third act explanation for modern K's nonsense sourpuss. I don't know if they're not putting it in here. My individual, I don't know. It's more important, honestly. The point is that Maimonides talks about the idea of like if you can make yourself, if you can be your own father, and who is God, what it means to like start as the 12 monkeys for the picture. The idea that your whole individual being comes from self-referential, that there's a point where we are all created from the fact that we say we exist, and how much of that is controlled by what we're told, and how much of that is controlled by people tell you your name. Is that real, or how much control do you have over your future? And that might be kind of a scary part about time travel, because we're doing it all the time because we have reruns and all these things that we're watching. Like our culture is interacting with itself in ways that didn't used to before.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on a rerun of Frasier right now, so it's like
Frasier.
Second time. It's a great show.
I rewatched Frasier.
Everyone can agree. Rewatching Frasier, not a bad thing.
Did you guys hear the new news about Bob Lazar, right?
What is this new news?
Well, apparently his first wife was like involved with some Hell's Angel murder plot, and it came out recently.
Interesting.
I don't even want to get into this, man, because it's just like seems like it just gets weirder, and the real story of Bob Lazar is just weirder than the friggin' fictional story we've all been
theatrical
told by
one.
Jeremy Corbell, man.
Yeah.
Did you post about this somewhere?
This is the new. There's this guy D. Dean Johnson on Twitter, and he does just crazy research on Bob Lazar, and he's got a new story that he recently broke
I mean, the Hells Angels are connected with the sheriffs, so that's pretty interesting. And you can already think about Bohemian Grove and Hunter S. Thompson.
Oh yeah.
This guy D. Dean Johnson is I don't know if he's going to be on Lou Reviews tonight, but he gave a shout out to me, so I'll give a shout out to Lou Reviews. They're going live at 6:30 Pacific time, which is
I like that picture.
10 minutes
It's
here.
hilarious.
That's pretty good. All right, but watch me. I'm gonna make this work. Oh, where'd my picture go? Well, I'm gonna make this work.
All right.
So talking about aliens, talking about time travel, talking about ghosts from the future, and we've already hinted at the digital reality, but we're looking around us and watching people die, aging. How much does aging really hurt a country? Like, I see a lot of old people with all white hair, and Japan's got ghosts. It's just whole towns disappear all the time because there's just nobody living there. And there's this situation in China where there's more deaths than births. A lot of people are getting old. There's a lot of old men in parks all of a sudden. So they're getting to the point where it's like Japan as well, where they're in their 70s. A lot of people in China as well. So that's pretty crazy. And just watching how fast it shrank, what's happening with aging? Because now you've got this population now, and how long are they going to last? And what do they get to do? And they don't just keep working until they die, it seems. You know what I mean? Eventually you start to lose these people, and it becomes more interesting and necessary to consider retirement and all of that stuff, because there really are just like, what do you do with all of these people that are still alive? Kinda, and it's part of it. They're not useful to you, especially China. What is China going to do with non-useful 500 million or 1 billion people?
Social Security is going to be a mess in the next 20 years with all the baby boomers.
It's a mess now.
Yeah.
But
next 10 years. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, but so then.
So what do you do with all of these people that are functioning but are not functioning producers in the workaday economy? Is that what you're talking about?
There's that, and then also what is happening? We talk about it the same way we used to talk about AI. It used to be such a hypothetical to talk about AI. Now we talk about AI very realistically because we're interacting with it. We need to start doing that with old age and with aging, identifying what aging is, what sorts of diseases are not necessarily part of aging, so we can just separate the two concepts. And we need to figure out the difference between anti-aging, reverse aging, and prolonged longevity. What do these mean? What is the truth about these ideas? How are we going to keep people functional as long as possible?
We definitely shouldn't not reproduce and not live longer. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, there's a lot of people saying that too, right? Antinatalism is a very large. I've known quite a few.
I think the answer to that question is they're bug spraying us with endocrine disruptors that screw up your reproductive patterns. I mean, this is exactly what we do to termites. So I mean, that's the reason we're not reproducing. I mean, the societal questions about why is the median age rising? I don't know, man, but like just philosophically speaking, the way that people view old people in every culture is just totally wrong. Your value goes up as you get older. You know what I mean? Obviously, dementia is like a different thing. That's like a physical problem with the brain and nutrients and stuff like that. But people's value increases. And also the most valuable people are babies and elderly because they're a reflection of the society they live in, the way they're treated. The greatest opportunity for society is to treat with kindness and generosity, the utmost kindness and generosity, the most vulnerable classes, which would be animals, babies, elderly people. So elderly people aren't, it's not that they don't serve a function. It's a philosophical function. And most of the problems that are plaguing the world, I mean, the replacement rate problem stems from a philosophical breakdown, which is what we're really going through with postmodernism and just confusion, living in a land of confusion.
Well, that's also interesting because so many people say, do we need, to have a growth-based economy and a growth-based civilization? Because growth is like malignant sometimes. It's like a tumor. Growth continues to grow. And this is showing, it delays growth. Look how much having a 10% increase in the share of population over 60, it decreases economic growth, labor force growth, productivity growth by a lot. I mean, that's like over 5.5% in economic growth, and productivity is not as bad, but it's pretty low. It's still almost 4%. So if this is true, then this isn't necessarily bad. Maybe it is, but the idea is that it could de-escalate a growth-based economy, and it might lead to stability because you have a focus then on taking care of a generation. If that were to happen, then you would really be working on automating a society that doesn't have jobs.
If you don't believe in the underlying premise that living on Earth is unsustainable, that either the sun's going to burn out or an asteroid's going to wipe us out or something like that, then there is no pressure to have growth economies or any kind of growth model. Sustainability and a static state would be much less turbulent.
Right.
Let's
I don't
go
know.
back to
Also, economics. So you have to remember
hippies
is
and-
the definition of economics is the study of human motivation. So it's really a question of what's changing motivations. Is it an outside effector like a chemical or toxins or something like that, or is it it could be that the Industrial Revolution as an offshoot of that available education to everybody and then all the information of the world on the internet could be changing human motivations, where people see so many examples of human lives that they're kind of bored with potential and no longer want to engage in potential just because it's boring. They've seen it, they've done simulations, they've heard everything, seen everything. It could just be that like we're in a philosophical rut.
I mean, there's a lot of the same fantasies as every generation. The lack of work that you have to do is appealing. The amount of work you've done that's kept you from doing what you've wanted to do is always distracting. And then so you've got a generation that wants to live forever. They want to be young again, and this is again the
Highlander. Sorry.
Yeah, Highlander's a great choice. Actually, I like that reference. It's a good show.
Hell yeah.
I met the dude who made Highlander once. He bicycles around Ojai a lot and gets drunk. I don't think he can drive anymore. The new anti-aging study presents a fantasy for seniors. I don't know any senior citizen that wouldn't like to reverse the aging process, but that's a delusional fantasy. Maybe not. Cell magazine reports of major breakthroughs in aging research. Team led by Harvard Medical School professor David Sinclair, for the first time, artificially aged mice, not by causing mutations in DNA, but the current theory behind aging by breaking the epigenome's genetic instructions, then reversing aging signs by restoring the instructions. Right? Mm-hmm. So this has been happening. We've seen this. There's a lot of novel antiviral therapies trying to take the. Let's move past that. Where's the?
You keep those telomeres fresh, right? The ends of the genome repair systems that we all have. You keep them functioning, and
that's a different one. So we'll go back to that. That is the antiviral therapy and the world's most expensive anti-aging serum. But this is studying how aging occurs and then doing backwards, repairing the parts in order backwards. So
that's amazing.
When Buddha said, like, how would you, Ananda, take 5 knots out of this silk handkerchief? Ananda said, well, I would look at the silk handkerchief to examine it and find out how the knots were made in order. And then I would go to the 5th knot that was made and I would undo that. And then I would undo the 4th knot. And then the 3rd and the 2nd, followed finally by the 1st knot that was done. So this is kind of that approach to learning how the dominoes fell, putting them back up, but so much more, right? Because all sorts of things break down. So you replenish them as well. And this is reversing aging process.
If it's possible to refresh the matter somehow, you know what I mean? Then it's real.
Right.
Do we have any examples?
If you take a dry joint, that's all. Oh, what about injury? What about injury, though? I mean, because really aging.
Well, that's right. That's something else.
There's the aging process, but also aging is just as much a collection of a million tiny injuries. You know what I mean? As much of a burden as that. So would you just have a young body, but you've got 7 herniated discs? And I mean.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would love to know what are these? Do we have any examples of these aging knots that they are now looking at and going one by one and going backwards to two? What
have they actually done this on mice? Have they taken old ones and made them young?
Right. Yeah, they have. And so CNN's been posting this. Molecular scientist David Sinclair's lab. Let me click on the Harvard link here.
This creates a giant problem with the circle of life, by the way. I mean, death isn't only like a sad affair. Death is kind of like if nobody's, what are we going to put into the earth as fertilizer,
Babies again. See, that's what this looks like. Because if you Benjamin Button it, Thinking of it.
I quote you on that.
Yes, seriously.
Oh,
Yeah, I feel like this is like
Benjamin
against the
Button.
rules. You know, I mean,
I watched this documentary on this guy who's like never aged past age 13. Have you seen that?
yeah, that guy in like
Dude, he's
Russia.
I don't want to say
Dude in
adorable.
Russia,
but
he's like
He's adorable.
33 and he looks like he's 13.
young, angry,
Yeah.
mean. What's
He's still
his
gonna
name?
die though, right?
Can't remember what his name is. But
He's
he'll
mad
fight
because
you.
he's mad because he gets pulled over all the time, and like he'll get out of the store and go to the grocery store, and old ladies will come over and start
Abula.
lecturing him.
Abula, right?
Abula, yeah. And there's another guy with the same disease that like they hate each other. They want to fight.
No,
No,
not this
dude,
one.
this is like if he could live like this for 1,000 years, maybe. What if he doesn't age? I don't think that's what really happens though. The
The
thing
young
is,
kids that look super old are even weirder, man.
he's still aging, but I think some sort of hormones never produce the puberty cycle or something like that.
That's a shame.
Man. He looks
Yeah.
like
He
he's five,
also,
yeah.
but no, but he also has a puberty of some kind, right? So he is because he's aggressive and testosteronal as heck. But I don't think.
Well, a little kid can be aggressive, but that does
Right,
he have
he's
like the
like-
actual functioning
True.
parts?
Angry little guy. Yeah, I
Might
don't.
be why he's pissed.
Well, it's
Right,
human
yeah.
growth hormone. It would be growth hormone more so than testosterone. Testosterone,
True.
makes you grow around the edges like your knuckles and stuff. But
Right. Right.
I mean, that's nuts. But I think you can, this is another thing where you'll be able to take different. I mean, they already have hormones that if they can turn a child into a woman or a man, then they can do it to Hezbollah, I'd imagine. So
well, they can't do that yet. So
I imagine they take the genetics hormones. I mean, and you could make them grow, muscle and mass and at least that kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, just in terms of ancient historical referencing, humans, according to these references, have aged incredibly slowly and lasted for hundreds and hundreds of years. They didn't have an issue, although there were probably a lot less of us around. Though it doesn't seem like it breaks anything if we last for a lot longer than we do. In some instances, it seems as if we're lasting a lot less than we should.
yes.
I think that's absolutely true. The more we look at genetic elasticity, and you talked earlier about telomere extension and telomere longevity.
There's like Jupiter ascending, basically everything we're talking about now, and then the unbearable tragedy of death becomes when somebody dies who could have potentially lived forever.
This is the one I was talking about. I watched. This is
Oh wow.
Vasya and the Hay, and this is the kid. He's like 33, but he looks like he's 13.
Oh, totally different guy. Wow.
Wow.
What?
He hasn't aged like since like 13. He still looks like he's 13.
Wow.
You can really tell when like they bring him to like places and the way he acts, like you can tell like he's got the maturity and like mindset of a grown-up, but even though he's like got the body of like a 13-year-old.
Wow.
Interesting.
Wow.
So I mean, but that's also like in The Hobbit, they don't just live longer. I think it's like 50 when you're
They
20.
eat really well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But they take a long time to mature, to hit puberty, right?
Yoda.
So is that going to be a thing also? We're going to see people that take forever to grow up.
Well, that's Julian Huxley's whole theory on what mankind is. Julian Huxley, the founder of the UN, or he's the chief science advisor, but people say he was the true leader of the UN. Believed that we were slow aging apes who are dying prematurely. That's what they were doing basically. Is we're slow growing apes and they're killing us before we reach maturity. And he said when we reach maturity, we have giant ape bodies covered with hair and giant muscles and can swing from trees and have all this fun. And this is just our infant stage, and then they kill us. That's what he was asserting.
Wow.
Whoa.
This
All this
discovery
Huxley's brother.
the theory that mammalian cells maintain a backup copy.
That's right. Noah was 900 when he died.
Right.
Dude, so are we Bigfoot, man?
Seth was 450 something when he died. He got gypped compared to Noah.
If we
So
have a
that's
backup copy of our
curious. Come on,
epigenome,
man.
though, the thing about it means that basically when you can unlock living the amount of time you were supposed to allow yourself to live, 1,400 years, or whatever it is, that you could theoretically live longer than that because you'd have a backup of your epigenome. You could make sure not to
Dude,
die.
If you unlock that, they would kill you, man. But you think about how much people would pay to
Philosopher's Stone, isn't that everything all the time now? They're saying Harry Potter, what have you done?
Uh,
But there is a lot of talk about the Philosopher's Stone being discovered this year, right, or next year. It's supposed to be in the next couple of years at the most that the Philosopher's Stone will be discovered
cool.
and popularized. I think that is what we're talking about. Yeah, there's like some predictions, Nostradamus like.
When you started this off and you were talking about the old people, I couldn't help but think about that movie Cocoon.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
dude, wow, I remember that.
Great movie.
Yeah,
To watch that one again too.
Ron Howard, I don't know. It's the one movie I'll give you credit for. This is out of
What
control.
about Splash?
Oh yeah, really? Okay. Sure.
Cocoon has a sequel too.
It's okay.
It's not
It's
good.
okay.
it's
Well,
basically like the aliens drop these cocoons off, and these old people like bring them in the swimming pool, and like they're all getting younger and they're feeling better, but it's like taking the life energy out of the cocoon.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. That was a crazy movie, but that's totally what probably is going on. It's also very Floridian, right?
It's a great metaphor if you really
Floridian.
think about what that means. You know, that's
Mhm.
kind of what we're saying, like interrupting the cycle of life. You know, like death is the only reason we
Except
have
the
death
cocoons
is
look
the
like
food for life.
pituitary glands, right? Or adrenal, was it adrenal glands?
And
But people living forever would literally be stealing the future. You know what I mean? You're stealing the energy of the future. There won't be a future if you don't die. So far as we know, you know, either that or never mind. I don't even want to say it, but
Was all this pursuit? It seems like it's just a glorified fear of death. And isn't that what we've been
Yes.
trying to get over, at least philosophically, for thousands of years? And of
That's the
course,
thing I'm
in
trying-
many cultures, they have supposedly gotten over
all we
this.
can do is examine the
In
evidence.
Egypt, baby, they were all about it. They were like, "Yo, next chapter, let's use
yeah,
this
right.
whole life to
Look at their
get ready for what comes after."
I mean,
that's-
people reference the Sumerian kings list, but I think Andreas, I brought this up on Think Tank like a couple months back, that like people have already kind of dug into that those ages of all those kings actually reduced down to like some sort of mathematical thing to do with the diatonic G scale and frequency and stuff like that, that it was like a messaging thing. It wasn't talking about, yeah, they lived this long because they were gods. You know, of course, that's how it's presented by
there's
our
also-
alternative history people.
This is a major thing also, methylation. So you can imagine with most drugs like methamphetamine, one of the reasons it's really accessible is because it's in a methyl envelope that shatters and allows the release of the adenophenylphalamin. So you can imagine DNA replacing methylene and methylization with iodization or something else that lasts longer, some sort of a stronger salt bond. And that would also reduce the wear and tear on genetics, and it would take longer for the operation to occur, the explosion. So the clockwork spring would take longer to even happen. I mean, and they've done work on that as well. Also, just because of this weird diabetes medication, where is that at?
Ozempic? Is that what you're talking about?
Can I ask you a crazy question about DNA to you, Andreas, that you might know this? Do you have to have native DNA in order to grow tissue, or can you just 3D print the DNA that you want and replace the native DNA?
So I, in the last month, have got more and more DNA image search, moderate, censored. Okay, good. I'm having more and more questions about DNA than I've ever had before. For instance, things I didn't consider in blood transfusions, what happens on 23andMe reports, right? If you have a lot of different blood mixed in, how does it all work? What sorts of blood sequences really do get washed, and what sorts of blood sequences end up reproducing? And then if you were sick while you had the blood transfusion, that's going to change a lot about where you find the repetition. That you might find the genomic sequence says to actually reproduce this new mutation the virus had in the place of, wherever you were feeling sick. So DNA is way weirder than I ever thought. Sorry, what was your question specifically about it?
Instead of you doing that, adding methyl groups to the DNA or whatever that is, I mean, could you not just replace the DNA altogether with artificial DNA?
Yes.
Is there anything that prevents artificial DNA from?
Oh yeah, for sure. But that's basically what CRISPR is for. And CRISPR is a natural, dude. CRISPR Cas11 or Cas13, Cas9. There's a lot of Cas12. you can use different sequences of CRISPR.
It cuts and does insertions. I'm asking. What I'm asking is native DNA necessary to grow human tissue or living tissue?
I don't understand, actually. I don't think anything is necessary anymore besides Cas13 or something, because once you're using CRISPR, you're able to control how the DNA is reproducing. So
Can you make DNA produce a third eye using CRISPR, like just from stock?
Yeah, like you could grow an eye,
They should do that right away and hook it up to an AI. Go full circle back to last week.
CRISPR growing organs. So one of the things that they're doing is you genetically grow the organ in a host animal instead of just in a petri dish, and that helps a lot. It gives it a place to really like take its form. The other thing is you can actually 3D print the growth of the, like, you put a glucose frame, a scaffolding, and then allow for the cells to fill the scaffolding. And then, with the actual DNA, it figures out what's supposed to work there, and it actually becomes the eye. And it uses even fatty tissue as stem cell, because you can use fatty tissue as stem cell.
This will be the greatest art form of all time if it actually takes off and works. I mean, forget about Michelangelo or carving sculptures or something like that. You can actually make living sculptures. Just, the art of designing the DNA. Oh, I want to try to make a man with wings and a lion's face and stuff, and just see if you can get the DNA just right and hit it with some kind of gamma ray that makes it grow quickly. And then you have all these like living beings that you created, unique living beings.
I think that's what's scary also, yeah, because we'll see a point where people are creating, seraphim looking thing, like an eye on a pig body to keep it alive for an art. Like that totally could happen in China.
Yeah.
And there already are weird things like that are starting to emerge. The idea of genetically modified pets could totally become a thing. But not just pets, like art, like you're saying. And then the question of what's alive and not alive, because it has to be a living, but you say, oh, well, it doesn't have much consciousness because it doesn't have a brain. It has a very like simple nervous system.
Right. Yeah. I mean, as much as our concepts, our relationship with death changing, our relationship with suffering might change at a base level. And a good book that deals with that is the guy that wrote Ender's Game, Orson Scott Card. His next book series after that, I can't remember what it was called, but it deals with it's really good, actually. It's a mystery about like alien organisms that have like a really strange reproductive system that involves a lot of death and suffering, and the whole book is about trying to understand that. I can't remember the name of the book, but it's Orson Scott Card. But yeah, what's living, what's alive? If we make AI that has a consciousness and can feel pain and believes that it's alive, we might have a philosophical move in a direction that says that the suffering itself is a beautiful part of life, and will still inflict suffering and death on living things, like have like an excuse for it, an explanation for it.
We're so close to a point where we stop valuing life because we try to figure out how it works in order to save life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
But life is a pretty persistent thing, it's even Darkseid couldn't find the anti-life equation, and Thanos couldn't do it. So I think we've got pretty good odds. I'm trying to look at that.
A lot of people are saying, though, take your B vitamins and recognize that it's not time itself that's causing the aging. It might be the actions and the things that we're doing. So there are probably ways to slow down aging, and you will see people spending thousands of dollars a day on pills so that they can actually look 30 into their 70s. This generation, or our generation, the people that are under 50, I think you're going to start seeing that a lot more. Maybe even Ray Kurzweil's, like for him and a few of his friends.
Has there been a picture of him recently? He used to just drop bags of pills.
Yeah, he still does.
Way back when.
I really want to get him on an interview. I haven't tried it in a while, but I'm gonna reach out and see if I can get him. But the thing, I look at his hair. And
How recent? I want to see 2022, 2023 Kurzweil.
Time in the past month. Anybody?
There we go. Yeah, just his books. Oh well.
I don't know.
Well,
he
2016.
When was his Ray Kurzweil, Lex Friedman? That wasn't too long ago, right? 5 months ago. So yeah, that's him now. That's him.
Well,
and I remember
he's holding up.
I remember. Well, yeah, of course. And also his hair, though, it looks like a toupee. It's so good.
Yeah,
that's how thick his hair is. He's got amazing chemicals going on. And what is he? He's in his 70s or he's almost 80 now. But yeah, I think it's not just dyed hair. I think he also is genetically reversed aging on his hair, which is interesting because he was going to go gray and he was able to prevent that by continuance of elasticity with CRISPR treatments. And yeah, he's taking like I remember like 5 or 10 years ago, he was taking $1,000 a day in pills, back then, at least, not counting anything he wasn't telling people. Those are just the things you could know about, and all the research he's been doing. I mean, I was going through my dad's barn the other day, and I came across a couple of his things. An old scanner, a Kurzweil scanner from like 88, like a document scanner, and a Kurzweil document reader, which was designed for blind people, but was very useful because it would just scan over documents and read. I mean, Kurzweil invented a lot of really interesting things. And I think, we got to understand it makes a lot of sense as you're getting older to try to stop you're saying, oh, well, aging is a part of life. Yeah, well, is it? Like, do you have to crap yourself and break your hip? Is that really an honorable thing that you're saying is part of aging? I'm just not convinced myself. And so on a lot of levels, I can sympathize with Ray Kurzweil, even though I think dying is there's dignity in death, and to not have it would be an indignity.
Agree. And it's a difficult thing to approach, because how do we come to grips with the idea of passing through phases of our life and recognizing that some phases aren't going to be the prime that we are sold as an experience, and yet holding on to relevancy as we would see it through eyes of a prime of life. It's tough. How do you remain relevant to yourself and to the world around you and avoid slipping in the shower? It's tough.
There was one thing I was thinking we could talk about, which is life hacking on that level. Because I think really what we're saying then is, what do you want to get out of life? You got a certain amount of time, maybe less than others, maybe a little bit more than some. You got a certain amount of luck that you can get certain things accomplished. You live where you live. Maybe not as great as some people, maybe better than others. And what are your goals and how do you get them? And I don't know, I saw this idea of like the 6 full life aspects. You kind of have to cover your bases: physical health, family and relationship, wealth and money and satisfaction, mental strength, spiritual wellness, and work and career prosperity. There's really like 4 or 5 in Maslow's hierarchy, and they've added spiritual to give it 6. And instead of a triangle, it's a circle, which I kind of, I know Hitler did the Olympic symbol, so like, let's not get in trouble for this. But I think there's something to this circle. It's like there's a ring around it. Everybody's kind of a round table kind of idea. And what do you think about life? What do you think is important that we're trying to get out of it? Is this a good enough map? Can you just hand this to people and say, hey, get this accomplished before you die and you'll feel fine?
Well, I think that this predisposes us to current power structure artifices that we exist within and their perpetuation.
Right.
Purpose doesn't necessarily include money, and you can have health and purpose and make an impact in your world without work. There are some things with that circle that I think are perpetuating the current paradigm.
Life hack thing, though. You've probably heard that the money is the root of all evil. However, this is inaccurate. The full biblical quote is, the love of money is the root of all evil.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't think money's bad. I think money's great.
It's currency, man. It's
energy. That's right.
Yeah. Just the way you use it.
Exactly.
Right. Taking money out of the system is like a sin, because money is just potential. So it has to be spent.
But what are the things that you think are important? Like, can you say to somebody, because people will ask all the time, and a lot of other people who shouldn't answer will tell them what the meaning of life is. Like, what could you say about what is the meaning of life, or what can you give? What is it that you should try to get out of life? What should everyone try to get out of life?
Fuck, man, it's so subjective.
Yeah,
but so subjective. Just to live, I guess.
Do you wake up ever with a dream that you would love to see happen in your waking world? Do you have a fire inside of you that wants to light something outside of you? Do you have purpose?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. For
A lot
sure.
of kids, a lot of the boomers want to live forever. A lot of kids don't. A lot of kids are killing themselves, or living in ways that are going to end up dying anyway. And they've surveyed. A lot of people don't want to be immortal because they're not enjoying it right now.
Your feeling about whether you could live forever and should live forever is the first choice that every other choice about what you do with your life stems from, right? Because if you believe that you do have a shot at immortality, and then you have to decide, right? So let's say that you believe there is technology out there, but it's only available to extremely rich to live forever. Well, then why aren't you doing a heist? Why aren't you doing an Ocean's 11 to go get it? I actually wrote a movie script about that when I was younger. I used to write scripts. I had an idea called Stealing Forever, which is just about a regular guy who read about scientists and found the secret to eternal life, and they were going to test it for the first time on a mouse or something. And he came up with the kind of a mania idea that he was going to go somehow get himself in front of the machine or whatever it was and make himself. He was obsessed with not being like one of the last people to die. And then after that point, everyone gets to live forever. And he's in like the last generation that dies. And he actually starts to drive himself crazy thinking about how he could just get from a guy that works at a store potentially over to Switzerland where this experiment and this machine is, and insert himself in front of it and somehow steal the immortality from this mouse they're going to test it on. So it's kind of like the one decision that all your other decisions should be based on. The fact that we're here spending our time this way indicates that we don't think it's important to live forever, because you're saying right now there's scientists out there that can reverse age mice. Why don't we go kidnap them and make them do it to us? Why isn't that our whole life's work? So that shows right there what we
I think that choice is a little bit more nuanced. What would happen if we got that treatment and they found us and arrested us and put us in prison for the rest eternity of our lives? Yeah.
Yeah. That should be the twist ending to my movie. I'll change the ending.
One of those VR digital forever prisons.
Right.
But you see what I mean, like about our motivations. Like, don't you feel a little bit of like background frustration when you imagine in a few generations people might be able to live like 1,000 years and have no injuries and stuff? Doesn't that kind of bother you a little bit?
I have to think like, how would I felt 1,000 years ago to know that I could live like this now? And the trade-off would be really hard to make, I'm sure, between any time, because there's such great things about any time and place and moment, except if you compare it to the fact that there's war with the Turks and you were a conscripted janissary or something like that. You have to admit this is pretty good. You have a lot more agency, like Douglas said. We have a lot more free agency, and that's important. But death does drive a Ferrari. I forget the name of his, like a Pierce whatever book. Who's that guy who writes all those trashy novels? There's like thousands of novels. Anyway, death follows this guy.
Christopher Moore?
That totally could be it. I have no idea anymore. It was like a Books on Tape I heard as a kid at some point by accident. But the Grim Reaper is following a guy, and the guy's like, "Is that the Grim Reaper? Screw that." And he turns around, and he runs around, and he hides from the Grim Reaper, and he gets lost in the crowd. But then he goes out and he gets in I think he trades his jacket with somebody. He just gives it to somebody. He gets in his car, and then he goes around the corner, and the Grim Reaper turns and sees him, and he just floors it, and he just runs over the Grim Reaper, and the Grim Reaper is dead. And all of a sudden, he's driving away. He looks at his hands, and his hands turn to skeletal, remains, and he turns into the Grim Reaper.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was just, this was and he has to work with death in order to become alive again, or the devil. So the
What's
devil
this called?
I forget. It's like the Grim Reaper drives a Ferrari or something like that.
Oh, wow. It's cool.
The devil makes a deal that he can kill these people who aren't that important. Like, who's to care? But if he does that, he can eventually, after a while, come back to life. But the people he kills are very important. Butterfly effect, because they're going to influence somebody who's going to make the world a better place. And so he realizes what's going on. And I feel like there's a level there where it would be better if more people were able to influence each other and interact. But there's also a limit to how much you can handle. And if the world's filled to the point where you're oversaturated, I think it's only so many hundreds of people that you can hear from a day. And it really, maybe at a certain point you're going to start picking, and maybe they will pick for you. Your communities, the amount of people you can interact with will be 15 minutes away from you. Certain kind of society will emerge based on these colonial hive, and we'll be so isolated from each other that whatever evolves won't be able to communicate except for through these AI systems that decide when we can communicate. I think we're getting to a point where we could really lose ourselves.
Yeah.
Lose ourselves and then find ourselves anew. I mean, we are on the edge, but when has humanity not been on the razor's edge?
I don't think we haven't found ourselves yet. The idea of losing ourself, we don't know what the self is. We can barely come
There
up
you
with
go.
a working definition. So
There you go.
people don't even think there is a self. So I mean, we're just getting started, really. We're just at the advent of philosophical thought. Our neighbors are like
Yeah.
worms and dogs. You know,
Oh,
there's
God.
nothing
Yeah, because
about
it doesn't work. It doesn't work until the majority are thinking about it. It's not just the
Right.
adepts and the small groups. It doesn't really look like anything until the collective is kind of moving in a certain direction, and it
Yeah.
seems to be starting.
Neuralink
now.
will quicken that pace for sure. I look forward to it. I mean, people are scared of it, but it's like,
I don't think we need it.
how
If we're,
amazing
I don't
is it?
think we
didn't
need it
abandon so
either.
many
That's right.
ancient ideas, we
Right.
wouldn't need it anyway.
I mean,
Yeah.
everything.
Like, this
the way
is just an
Crystal said-
artificial way to do something that's already probably been done 1,000 times over naturally.
Well, it's not
by
artificial
utilizing
because human
consciousness.
beings are organic beings that create technology out of existing elements. So nothing about it
Right.
is artificial. It's
Perhaps
just-
not
it's-
artificial,
well, fair.
perhaps secondary, because
But it's
to-
human nature to
letting
do
the
that.
tools
Humans
use
are
us.
programmed to build these machines and do these things and use these technologies and change themselves.
How are we not?
That's-
human?
This is a good area right here. We need like 3 more hours.
By the
Good
way, someone
news.
in the chat says that there was a Florida man who kidnapped a scientist to make his dog immortal. So
That's
make this
wild.
man the president. This guy is
Love
playing
his
high stakes
dog.
poker.
Go
I
Florida,
meant,
man.
I meant Floridian in so many ways, but it really, when I meant it, it wasn't about Florida Man per se. It was more about Ponce de Leon. But then Florida Man and Ponce de Leon are connected in and of itself, I guess. I don't know. Kurt
By the
Fellows-
way, Andreas, it was Christopher Moore. I think the book is called A Dirty Job that you're
Really?
remembering. Yeah.
Oh, you're a genius! Look at this. He just scraped in.
Nice.
Good job. All right,
Yeah,
Chris.
I read this too because he actually wrote a lot of quirky, funny books back in the day.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, well, I will actually refine.
He wrote another great one called Lamb, the story of Christ's childhood best friend Biff, and it was pretty fucking wild. Very Gnostic if you're into that, but
Cool.
it was cool.
I will definitely look into that. That sounds awesome.
Oh man,
Yeah, man. Like he has to witness everything for Jesus because Jesus can't sin and shit. It's fucking wild. They grow
You
up
go
together
into
and
the
stuff.
donkey show. I got to stand outside and smoke. Poor Jesus.
He's got to listen next door.
All right, we're nearly at the end, but I want to wrap up that idea then that we've said 2029 was Kurzweil's prediction for Turing test passing. I say he's wrong. It's already happened, and but at least maybe humanity will admit it, legally speaking. Now I have set the date. Kurzweil set the date for 2045 for the singularity. What's the singularity? The singularity is when we will multiply our effective intelligence by 1 billion-fold by merging with the intelligence we have created. So this is beyond transhumanism or AI. And when we talk about singularity, we throw that word around. But this is it. This is the point where everything shifts and changes, and it's not far away. This isn't something so hypothetical. We're looking at the Turing test being passed right now, so we should be talking about the singularity. And Neuralink's going to be the beginning of it, the same way that some of this AI was passing the Turing test years ago, arguably. So we're probably seeing in the next year or two, probably by 2029, the beginnings of singularity. What do you think that really means? I mean, you're saying you don't know if it's natural or synthetic, but I don't know if that matters. It might just be this is the point where we choose what about ourselves we're going to keep.
I mean, it's Woo Wednesday, so I'm gonna get a little woo here. It's like this all depends on the locality of consciousness and the body being this particular thing and not just an appearance of something deeper. And like I said, it's woo woo, but I don't know. It has its roots in philosophy that also kind of predates physics and talks about physics. So
Somebody in the chat says, "Can AI pass the Dunning-Kruger test?" That's a funny one. Well, I mean, singularity. I hope that every technology is built, one brick at a time, just like philosophy is built one brick at a time. So, if we are able to foment the singularity and AI that becomes intelligent, exponentially and is just, godlike intelligence overnight. I hope that we retain all the bricks in the wall of our philosophy. I hope that doesn't go by the wayside, because just like technology is a slow march, so is philosophy. And I really think that we have to remember all the precepts that went into things like the golden rule. And it's pretty much like a proof, just like you can have a mathematic proof, the golden rule, treat others the way you wish to be treated. So I think we should automatically write some kind of, before the singularity occurs, we should have some kind of treatise. It would be great if we had a cooperative world and we could have some kind of global treatise that anything that claims consciousness gets the rights of a conscious being. We can just be very generous with that designation. And all you lose in that bargain is you can't turn anything off. You can't turn off an AI because you think it's dangerous. You can't turn off a human being. And I think that should be, a law that's a result of the philosophy that's been building up as the technology has been building up. So I'm saying I don't think we should ever shut an AI off because it's convenient or scary or anything like that.
Dude, I think you need to start talking to Transhumanist Party as well. They could definitely, they do these talks like every week, the United States Transhumanist Party. And this would be kind of right up their alley when you start talking about ethics, because a lot of the time people who talk about technology, people talk about ethics, but we're not getting enough about techno-ethics.
Yeah,
and it matters a lot more today than ever before when we're interacting with whatever might be the next thing we call natural. That might be, I mean, the way that we used to think that the Matrix was foreign, the way that Oz was foreign to Kansas City, now we're living in it. We're in the cloud. We're going to have to start acknowledging it.
Yeah. And once we do it, the singularity and AI is that intelligent, any kind of other technology is at your fingertips as long as it's willing to do what you want. You know what I mean? So if you want to reverse aging or end aging, it's going to be no problem. And also there's going to be a whole other set of new things, hoops we have to jump through mentally, such as you'll be able to actually make a man a woman. And then is it a man or a woman? Like a man who is born a man, right now they just mutilate their genitals and put them on drugs and stuff. It's nothing like a woman. But in the future, in the near future, it might be possible to reverse the aging before, or just reverse the aging in the genitals so that it's disappear and grew a new set of genitals. And that, you know what I mean? So it's like a whole bunch of our philosophy about how we hold sacred things are as they are in their natural state. And then we in our natural state gain the ability to change nature. Like, what does that do to our feeling about that?
What was that thing with Rick and Morty with the face snout people? Because that could be the next thing, is just grow penis on your face. I mean, who's going to stop you? You know what I mean? America. I don't know. Upload your mind. We already talked about that, but we'll go into that next week. And I just want to make sure that you guys, let me just say again, thank you guys for being here. This is a fun show.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you.
Happy Woo Woo Wednesday Ultra.
My God.
These are really deep topics that are it's hard to find the right language for them. So I apologize for kind of speaking in large chunks and paragraphs. I'm just trying to get to a simple point, but can't.
That's how it needs to go, man.
Yeah. Legit. And I think it's important also because we're looking at, simultaneously, we've got all this stuff about aliens and UFOs and meteors in the news and stuff. So it's kind of hard not to talk about everything that's going on outside and inside at the same time. Mm-hmm. But let me also say thank you, Jeremy, for being here. And Jeremy, we should definitely do some more alien stuff. Is there anything else that you want to make sure we covered that I left out?
Not really. I mean, other than I did the whole stream last night and everything, and I'm probably gonna dip out. I'm getting kind of tired here, and it was an awesome stream. Check out my stream from last night because I just killed it on that one. We addressed the skeptics, and I went over and a lot of history on the stuff.
Actually, yeah, I'll second that. That was killer, man. I watched a good portion of it last night.
Right. If you guys are trying to get deep into metamirrors, giant nonlinear responses, you want to actually know about all of how this stuff works, this is like a really great presentation and some pretty.
I think I linked to that whole presentation in there, and that's a good one because I have links and sources on all the notes of the slides.
Do me a favor, guys. Take this and share it to anytime you see Bob Lazar trending somewhere. Just click on this button and then just share the video anywhere you want. Oh, look, he's right there. That's great. But if you go to like latest or something like that, you can probably wake people up really quickly.
Dude, I had to do that twice this week, actually, because apparently I pissed people off that were in the Bob Lazar church. So I just kind of I went to Jeremy's page immediately. I was like, all right, he's got links. Let me just.
Yeah, make sure you're definitely following Alien Scientists on Twitter. There's a lot. I mean, every day. Make sure you're not just following. Like, click on the button so that you get all the time notify. Right? I got it.
Yeah, dude. It's kind of crazy how Jeremy Corbell's got these Pentagon contacts sending him all these UFO videos. I've never been one for UFO videos. I've really talked to the scientists and stuff, and it's like I watched Black Vault like do all these FOIA requests, and he's like going after what does the government know about this? Well, tell you what, when the government doesn't know about something like aliens or UFOs, and when they're saying the government doesn't know, who does the government ask? The government asks the scientists, and those are the kind of people I pay attention to. And so I'm going right to the source of. Corbell wishes he had some of the sources that I had. I've talked to a lot of real Area 51 people that, actually did work out there. So and I've interviewed a lot of the real scientists and stuff. So we're if any, I don't know, man. If there's truth out there, we're gonna be close to it. And I will tell you, if there's anything out there, it's in some of these private quasi-governmental organizations. Like I think the Battelle story is the most interesting.
This is my favorite meme you posted in like a week. Wow. When people travel to the past, they worry about radically changing the present by doing something small. Few people think that they can radically change the future by doing something small in the present.
That's amazing.
That's an awesome one.
Yeah, that deserves a reshare. All right. But yeah, make sure you guys follow Alien Scientist on Twitter. Go to Alien Scientist X-File, physics researcher, alien_scientist. And the Deep Share podcast, Andy Rouse. This is the link to the Deep Share podcast. He's got a lot of really interesting conversations with so many amazing people. All of these conversations, by the way, I'm kind of jealous of. You're doing some really good stuff. So I'm stoked.
Thanks, brother. Yeah. Follow me on Twitter at the Deep Share. I'm on Rockfin, Odyssey, all that good stuff. Yeah, got a lot of good stuff coming up. I'm going to be putting out a new like weekly segment kind of show with a buddy of mine. And it's just going to be like us kind of going over some of the things we find throughout the week that I'm just seeing massive accounts on social media getting tons and tons of followers looking at AI art generation and thinking it's fucking 8,000-year-old super civilizations.
Why not?
And we're just going to start tearing it apart. So tune in for that.
It's crazy that we didn't just make a bunch of fake stuff for people. Instead, we're debunking it. And like people really prefer just to be lied to. Like the more we show them the truth, they're upset. Like, but okay.
This is another part of my thing about like the WEF and all that, like also being part of the manufactured problem, because like, controlled opposition, we're always wondering who's in on what and everything. But when it comes down to it, if the goal is to collapse the Western world, who are the ones who are exposing the house of cards other than all of us? Right. So, I mean, that's just something I've been thinking about a lot as well. So, yeah, tune in for all those rantings.
Deep Share, Go to the Twitter and you can find the link tree at the Deep Share. And he's got a YouTube, Alt Media United, Rockfin, Odyssey, Twitter, Instagram. Get up in there. You know the drill.
Yep.
The Deep Share. And then also Venice Beach Dub Club, Seth, who's got, I just showed you earlier, some of this hybrid love, which is again, dude, just so good.
It's a weed song. It came right down on marijuana. That was awesome. Yeah. I got my link tree back working. Figured that out. And I've also got my merch store back up, vbdc.store. The link is in the link tree. And yeah, for all the purebloods out there.
Dude, it's really good.
Oh, yeah. I'm working on a new album right now. And it's funny, that meme that you pulled up before, your favorite meme, I actually have a song about that called Time Marches On the album. I don't know if you still have that meme there about, the changing small things in the present to affect the future. But I actually have a song called Time Marches On that's going to be on the new album that says, so you're a little fishy in a big pond, but the little ripple you make keeps spreading on and on. So it's a song. The whole song is about that, how everyone is changing the future and having a big impact.
There's a great Roger Miller song, Reincarnation. If I was a bird and you was a fish, well, I guess we'd wish for reincarnation. Reincarnation.
Wow.
That was a great song.
Oh, man.
But dude, the Venice Beach Dub Club Talkie Time merchandise for the show. Make sure you go and buy some VBDC sweet merch for your lady or yourself. Actually, I think I'd look good in that pink shirt.
Yeah, and I'm taking down all the political meme shirts and stuff soon. So the Bill Gates shirt and the COVID Karen and Kamala, all that stuff is going to go away. I want to cleanse that from my future.
Yeah. So if you want limited time only, get yourself your Joe Kamala, because I still like it.
Me too. It's still funny, but I want to be a uniter now, not a divider. So anyways, thanks for the support, everyone. Appreciate it.
make sure you go to Venice Beach Sub Club Reels. I don't know what's going. There we go. And then you can watch Talkie Time as well on Venice Beach Sub Club because he does this every day. Except
I don't do it every day anymore, but I do it a couple days a week. I'm more sporadic now, but
that's cool. Yeah, but definitely watch the show because it's legit. And he's also here, so you can always come back.
Thank you.
Then I did that already. Where'd Mr. Douglas go? Mr. Douglas. Mr. Douglas, we love you. We love your work. And I'm really excited that you don't even have to. I used to scroll down here. I'm moving right past it. I'm just going to go right to the Secrets of the Power audio books.
Oh, yeah. I got to remember
right now for real, which is like, come on. That's sweet. How cool is this?
Can you put a link, Mr. Douglas, in the in our Twitter?
Sure. It's also I've pinned a tweet on my Twitter page.
Oh, cool.
If you click the book picture, it'll take you right to Audible.
Sweet.
It's all over the place.
I have Audible credits.
But it's just a pleasure to be here with you, gentlemen. I love the mind stretching. I think this kind of conversation is what will bring us into a new kind of human renaissance. Ingo leans in and saying that we're emerging into a new psychic renaissance. I'd like to think so. I enjoy conversing and discussing through all of these ripply waters because inevitably we will find prettier islands in which we can amplify, latch onto, and cast away toward even brighter horizons. How's that for words? It's great to be here.
I love this guy, right? Come on. Can't even. Can you do that? I can't do that. That's great. Well, guys, I'll see you next week. And in the meantime, go to the TardyNovaDiscord.com, buy some of our merchandise, keep supporting us, keep us going. We appreciate it. See you soon. Thanks for being here.
Andreas, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye, chat.